Thanks for joining the career development team for our webinar on how to be a graduate student. My name is Christine Kelly. I'm the Director of Career Development, and I am joined by...
I'm Lee Schroyer. I'm the Employer Relations and Internship Coordinator.
And I'm Ivy Caretti. I'm a career consultant here, fellow student at the CDO.
Wonderful. So today what we're going to do is kind of talk you through what it's like to be a graduate student. I'm assuming that you're all new at this, and so at some point we were all new at it as well. And there's some things about graduate school that are weird and odd and normal for graduate school. So we wanted to kind of help you figure out what some of those normal weird things are about graduate school so that you could identify when you've got normal weird and weird that needs some action. So if you have any questions, feel free to type into the question box, and we'll leave some time at the end also so that you can ask any questions that you might have with that. So I know that it might seem strange that the Career Development Office is hosting the webinar, and you might wonder what's up with the purple squirrel. But we wanted to get to you hopefully early in your career to help you start thinking about your career development process. Some of you, I realize, might be in a master's program, and 2 years is going to go by very, very quickly. And if you're in a PhD program, you might think that 5 years will be plenty of time to do the things you need to do, but you'll be surprised at how fast that will go also, in addition to all the work that you're going to be doing in your coursework. And so we just want to make sure that we can give you some information that will help you prepare for your career, but also prepare for your experience in graduate school. And the reason we put the purple squirrel in, we started talking about this, colleagues and I, a year ago. So if you went to the new student orientation, you might already be familiar with this. But in the world of work, these days with how things are changing and moving, you really need to be somebody who has some depth, but also a lot of breadth. And so purple squirrel represents those two things combined, since the theory was that hedgehogs who are blue and do one thing really well, they roll up in a ball and they get scared, and foxes, which are red and you do a lot of different things. When you combine those two together, red and blue make purple, and you get a squirrel. And so we want to try to encourage you to develop both your fox and your hedgehog qualities so that you can become a purple squirrel. And help you learn how to pivot effectively during your career. Right. So we wanted to start, obviously, since it is a career development office, telling you some of the things that we can do for you and helping you to understand what some of the ways are that we can help you. Oh, and it looks like nope, my dates are great. Okay, so we do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and for most of you, that might be the most beneficial thing for you, in addition to some of the webinars. But things that we can help you with, exploring what your options are. Designing a roadmap. We have a document called the Career Roadmap, which you might have seen. That's on our website, and it's also on our Handshake. And we have two. We have one that's for people not seeking academic positions, and Ivy helped me a couple of years ago create one that we call the Faculty Career Roadmap. So if you're looking into a faculty career, that would be the one that you would want to use. We also do a lot of document review, but the most important things I think we do are helping you practice for interviews and prepare to negotiate, especially the interview preparation. We do have, you'll see on the other side, when the online resources, Big Interview. So that's a platform that we pay for so that you can use that to practice your interviewing skills. But there's not a person who actually helps you figure out whether or not you're doing it right. So when you come in and meet with us, we can help you strategize for how you want to prepare your responses. And same with negotiate. I think most people in general aren't very good at it because you haven't had a whole lot of experience maybe. Women in particular tend to be less effective in negotiating at men, and mostly because we don't ask for things that we want because we learn it's not polite to ask. So come and talk to us and we'll help you figure out how to negotiate. We do have a bunch of webinars. And so there are two events that are coming up. So Careers in Higher Ed on October 12th. That is for anybody that wants to be in higher ed, so faculty or staff positions. So we're inviting people from different universities to come and speak about different things related to a career in higher ed in general. And then we're doing some internship workshops that are based on particular areas. So the first one on October 11th is for people in DBOS and community and global health. And on the 18th, we're doing for SysStat Economics and Math. And the 25th is going to be for Humanists. And online, I'm hoping you all have been in Handshake, have filled out your profile. We use that to send out targeted emails to you based on your interests. So the more we know about what you want and career-wise, what skill sets you have, the better able we are to send messages that are targeted towards your needs. We have a YouTube channel, so that's where this video will be posted after we're done. And if you missed any of the ones that we did during the summer, they're posted on YouTube. We also have short things called Career Bites, which are less than 5 minutes on something very specific to a career development process. And we have a blog. I'm working on a blog post for that now, which I hope to post next week. We have Facebook. And coming soon, we're working on trying to create some online platforms and courses within campus. So keep an eye out for that. All right, on to weirdness of graduate school. So if you're looking at this, what's the one thing missing from all the things in your head? Heidi, what's missing?
Career.
There you go. So we want to add that in, but could not add it to the picture. So PhD comics are pretty funny. So if you're in a master's student, you can still look at them. They're hilarious. It's a person who was a PhD, finished his PhD, but became a comic and does a speaking tour about things related to weird things in graduate school. So check him out. He's hilarious. All right, so what's normal in grad school versus what's not normal in graduate school? So again, lots of weird things that you have to be prepared for, and I'm sure Ivy and Lee can speak to both of these things. So the first thing that's you need to know about graduate school is that everybody's posing. So you might have heard of imposter syndrome. That's the notion that everybody else knows what's going on and you're the only one that doesn't. And that's actually not just academics suffer from that, but people in a lot of other thought industries, so people who use their brain a lot, tend to think that there's always somebody in the room smarter than they are. And so I don't know if you two have experienced that in your graduate career.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is Ivy. I am a PhD student in psychology and social psychology, and don't let the social part fool you. None of us ever really share with each other, fellow students, all the different kinds of stressors that we think are only uniquely affecting ourselves. And so it wasn't until about, I would say maybe even 2 years ago, that I learned about the imposter syndrome, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's me. It was just super shocking that I thought, so everybody else is confused and everybody else is stressed. And then sometimes the longer you're in your PhD program, the more I guess kind of the less intelligent you think you are, just because you're in this program and you're trying and anyways, everybody has these concerns and these thoughts. I think because I learned of that, I feel like I try to be more open and sharing with some of my closer colleagues, and I can attest to the fact that even, Malcolm, who's another career consultant here at the CDO, he's getting his PhD in English, so it's a different field altogether. But he, shared that he has the same opinions. He's like, wow, I thought it was just me. It's just, it's an interesting phenomenon for sure, but to be expected.
And that not only is true in your graduate career, don't expect that when you get out into your work career, that's going to change. It'll continue. You basically have to fake it till you make it. And until you can convince yourself you have the skills necessary.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the comment Ivy made about feeling less smart as she goes through it. Mm-hmm. When you come out on the other side, you realize that when you go into graduate school, you feel really smart, especially getting into a PhD program. Like, oh, wow, I'm brilliant. I get into a PhD program. But the longer you're in it, the dumber you feel. And by the time you get done with it, you feel like a total idiot. Yeah. And only because there's so many things that you don't know that you didn't know. So,
right.
So the first thing to remember is everyone in graduate school is posing. So keep that in mind. All of your classmates are equally as stressed as you are, and they don't have their stuff together. They're just pretending. And unfortunately, nobody likes to talk about it, only because, like Ivy said, you think everyone has their stuff together. So you just don't want to be the only one in the room to say, I feel like I'm sinking. Yeah. So that's normal in graduate school, to feel like you're posing and everyone's doing it. Second thing to think about is that you need to get used to ambiguity, especially if you're in a PhD program. A couple reasons for this. When you're in a PhD program, the first few years when you're doing coursework, it's very, very clear. You have assignments, you have a syllabus for all your classes. You know exactly what you have to do and when it needs to be done, and you do it and you get it finished. Mm-hmm. When it comes time for the stuff after that, it can take a while because at that point, I think your advisor says, well, why don't you do some stuff and I'll let you know when I think you're finished. And so that could take a while. So like, Ivy, what was your experience?
Right. So like I said, I'm in psychology, so I'm in DBOS. And for DBOS PhD students, we've got the coursework part of that. And then we have a portfolio that consists of a number of research projects and tools that must be completed before you take your oral exam, which then sets you up to be ABD and so forth, and moving on to the dissertation. So the portfolio part is actually where people get hung up the most, myself included, because it's specific enough to tell you, it's specific enough where you know the exact number of projects or items that you must complete. And you also, with the help of your grade advisor, determine a plan for that, which items you're going to do. You're going to pursue a publishable paper, you're going to pursue conference presentations. So you're able to identify this, but that's as specific as it gets. So everything else is up to you, how if you're going to do a publishable paper, then you have to conduct a study, and there's no attached timeline to that other than whatever it is that you set up for yourself. So that is the part that there are no clear sort of, I guess, cutoff points, time check-ins. It's absolutely on the individual to stay on track, create a plan, create like a timeline for yourself, stay on track, keep your meetings with your advisors so you can help ensure that your faculty or your staff or your advisors are also on track with your timeline. So it's just and plus if you include life in there, just other random life things, your timeline, you find that your timeline will be shifting very often. So what you thought we would complete this project in 6 months, now it's been a year and you're still not done. And that's actually very common for other DBOS students, PhD students that are working on their portfolios. It's the part that requires the most energy to stay disciplined and committed to your projects.
Yeah. And Lee, what about you in the master's program? Was there some ambiguity that you experienced?
Well, you don't have as much ambiguity with your coursework or the projects you need to do. All the coursework's laid out for you, what you want to do, but there is some ambiguity on the skills you're going to need to succeed in a career afterwards. So some of the ambiguity going to grad school, and I am a recent graduate of CGU too, are the other things you need to do beyond your coursework. Do you need to develop your leadership skills, time management skills, all the other portions that you're going to need to do as a career, your networking skills, all those things are things you need to work on to prepare for your career afterwards. So it is a little ambiguous beyond the coursework. And if I think Christina's mentioned this before, if the only thing you're doing is coursework, you're not doing enough to get yourself a career after graduation.
Yeah, that's really true. I'm kind of thinking about those types of things because when you go out, employers aren't concerned only with the degree. They are concerned with what skill sets you bring to the table. And if you don't really know the career you want to go into, you might not be thinking strategically about how to use your time and make sure you get the skills that you need. So if you're not good with ambiguity and uncertainty, that could be a problem for you, especially if you're in a PhD program. But that's the other thing that happens and makes it the ambiguity in there. If you're in a PhD program, you're being trained to be an independent scholar. So a lot of times faculty won't tell you what they want and be specific because they want you to figure it out yourself.
Part of the process.
And I think sometimes in classes too, I mean, you might ask about clarity, even as a master's student, clarity on an assignment, and they don't want to give you exactly what they want you to do. They want you to figure it out by yourself. And so it is different than undergrad in that way, that there's more uncertainty in your work. So keep that in mind, that ambiguity is just part of the experience. Another thing that you want to think about is that You need to stay connected during graduate school. Sometimes it's easy to pull away, again, especially when you get to that post coursework phase in a PhD program, because then a lot of the work that you do becomes pretty solitary. So you no longer are in classes, so you don't have that to kind of keep you connected. But also, if you're the kind of person who, when you get overwhelmed and stressed, you tend to hide from people, that's part of the reason that people get sad during graduate school, is because they lose connections with people. So that can happen, but you'll want to work towards thinking of ways to stay connected with your family, with your friends, and make sure that you're not pulled away. And in fact, even Lee and I were talking recently about dealing with the family issue, which can be a challenge if you have one. I mean, some of you might not. You're free to do what you want because you're single. But if you have a family, there might be other issues that come up.
Yeah, I know you can't see me through the computer screen, but this is a second career for me, and I actually have grandkids, and my kids are out of the house, but I had to let my wife know what the experience was going to be like for the 2 years I was going to school. I would not be very available to her, and your family's going to have to understand that and not be tugging you off in too many directions.
Mm-hmm. And I don't have a family in that same sense, but I can share that I have a mother and who's fairly close, who we're fairly close, and she, the same thing goes, and a brother that I'm really close with, and it's same thing goes. Like I had to I still tell them, since I'm still in this PhD program, like, I'm sorry, they're used to it by now, but in the beginning it was like full disclosure, like I feel like I'm going to be super busy, so please understand, I still love you, you're still my family. So it just, I think it goes in any context that, or my friends, I don't get to see my friends all the time, but it's just the people who care about you will understand, mm-hmm. and will be happy that you're moving forward in your goals.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's important to keep those friendships too, so you're
mm-hmm.
not just doing grad school all the time, just makes you stressed out too much. So not avoid isolation. And last is that you need to take care of yourself. We'll talk a little bit later. Lee's going to talk some more about burnout later, but there's a high rate of burnout in graduate school, and this can happen to anybody at any time. In fact, some of you might already be experiencing that, especially if you're in the stats program right now. I know the people that go through that class with their 3 modules too, get very stressed out for it and think, oh my gosh, I can't handle that. But it's important to really do self-care, do things that are going to help you to be successful, do some other things in addition to just coursework all the time. And in fact, even sometimes you sit your butt down and you start doing something and you find you're unproductive, but you feel like you have to force yourself to do it. I mean, get up, take a walk, do something else. So that you can maintain your mental health. But that's really important to think about, is that you need to take care of your physical and mental health. In fact, one of our faculty, he shares his personal experience about when he was in graduate school, that he had pretty much a complete breakdown and ended up hospitalized for a little while. And so he says he's very aware of that, and he tells the students all the time that you shouldn't work all the time. And in fact, he tells them when it's time for spring break or winter break, that if a student, he says before they go, he tells them, don't come back and tell me you spent the whole time working. I want to hear that you actually spent some time doing something fun and not relaxing. I don't think it's good that you work all the time. Mm-hmm. So there are some faculty who look at things in that way.
So on burnout is really when the demands of the school and all the other demands that we have to deal with on an everyday basis outweigh the resources we have. So to fight that, you really have to know what your resources are. And there's a lot of different resources we have going through school that we need to be aware of. So we've been talking a little bit about some of the material things, and make sure you have the tools that you need to go through school. And it may sound silly, but make sure you have the right printer, the right computer, and the software, so you're not continually fighting that. I can remember trying to print out articles I was going to read, but my printer and my computer weren't talking to each other, and I would spend 2 or 3 hours trying to fix that issue when I was supposed to be doing homework. So that was other hours I could be doing something a lot more vital. So know all the different resources that you're going to have, whether it's the material resources, the social support that Christine was talking about, and take care of your health too. One of the things in the personal side of your health is make sure you're paying attention to your health, but practice optimism. It's really going to benefit you. Celebrate the small wins that you have, the accomplishments that you completed the assignment on time, that you completed that stats module and you're moving on to the next one. Make sure you relax and you exercise too. Exercise is going to be really important to boost the level of endorphins that are going to help you deal with that stress that you're going to go through. There also in the materials part of it, know that you have psychological support here at CGU too through the Monsoor Center. Like the professor that Christine was talking about constantly pushes the Monsoor Center, and going through courses, I had friends that had to go to that Monsoor Center. It's just something know when you need to reach out and find those resources. On the next slide, it's just some research that shows, how social support can really benefit you and the levels of perceived stress that you feel. Without social support, it's going to be a lot higher, the physical symptoms you're going to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even when you think about ways you can get social support, study groups are really helpful, especially on classes that you find challenging. Some of the classes have a TA, so kind of working with the TA, but forming your own study group. And I know a lot of students, when they get to that dissertation stage, actually put together writing groups. And even if you're not in the same field with the people, that practice of meeting people, having a set schedule when we're all going to do this, and getting together. And so, even if you're writing about totally different things, being physically present with other people who are going through that same process and understand that can really be helpful. And in fact, even on a related note, we created a job club last year because we had been meeting a lot of students who had a similar interest in careers and wellness. And we thought, well, we're meeting them individually, but if we could get them together, they can work with each other and they can start doing things together. And so we're looking at developing more job clubs based on that. So you can have that, because job searching is also hard and can be incredibly depressing. You get a lot of rejection. In fact, look for my article on Monday on resiliency in your job search. But it takes a lot out of you. And so having other people who are supportive of you, even if they're looking at the same types of jobs, they might come across something that would be interesting to you that they're not interested in, and vice versa. And even if you're going for the same job, support each other, because you never really know what could happen. One of you gets hired, you might have the opportunity to hire the other person. So look out for those types of things and stay connected. So the other thing with burnout too is kind of thinking of ways that you can get through it and how to reframe your experience also. And I think also just knowing that things are normal, what you experience too. And so people do during graduate school feel overwhelmed. In fact, some of you right now, you might be looking at the book list that you got thinking, I can't possibly read all of that in a semester. And they don't expect you to read all of it. In fact, one of the things you'll learn how to do during graduate school is to skim really quickly, get the essence of something. I think you get to take large amounts of data and synthesize it into something small, which is a skill you will develop while you're here and will help you when you're in careers elsewhere as well. So just kind of think about how you're looking at things and look at things in a positive way. Too, and avoid perfection. Obviously, when you were an undergrad, you got good grades and you studied for your GREs, and that's how you got here, because you did all those things. But the reality is that after you get an advanced degree, no one asks you what your GPA is, master's or PhD. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, if you're a master's student trying to get into a PhD program, you do have to worry about grades. And actually, in graduate school, if you're getting below a B, you're not going to be around long. But you don't need to have that same thing. You don't have to get an A+ on a test. It's okay sometimes to get the B if trying to get the A is going to cause you too much stress. Or same with papers. And when you're writing your dissertation, the thing to know is done is good. It's not going to be the most perfect piece of research you ever did. And it actually shouldn't be, because if it is, then what does life have to hold for you if that was the best thing you were ever going to produce?
Yes.
So don't try to be a perfectionist.
B's get PhDs, is what I say.
There you go. Okay.
Well, part of it is learning. I mean, all of us, if you're in grad school, you're a high achiever.
Mm-hmm.
So and us high achievers are really push ourselves to get that perfect A grade.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I had to learn in grad school was to learn to be more, appreciate the process of learning rather than the actual end goal. I forget exactly how the saying goes, but the destination is the journey itself. Enjoy the process and be about the process of learning and learning the material, not necessarily the grade afterwards.
Yeah, that's true. And one more slide on burnout stuff too. So again, that I know you all know that you're going through the same process, but nobody really talks about it. So that's something to kind of think about as you go through. And that the more exhausted you get, the more inefficient you become, and the more cynical you start to get about how things are going. So when you get really tired, sleep. It's not a badge of honor to try and get by on 2 hours of sleep a night. No one's giving you an award for that. And it's not something you should be embarrassed of if you actually get 8 hours of sleep a night. That's a good thing if you can do that. And it will make you more productive, and it will help you to avoid some of the things that can cause burnout also. And, again, you need to set realistic expectations for yourself and go through the process and think about those things. And so some of the things that you might see as signs, or that would be signs of burnout for you, if you start to pull away from other people, pull away from school, pull away from homework, like if you have a day when you just can't get out of bed and you want to pull the covers up over your head, that could be a real strong symptom that you have burnout. If you're overly exhausted, like you can't even stay awake in class, that's not good, and that's a sign of burnout. And then feeling that you just aren't capable of doing the work. You wouldn't have gotten in here if the faculty didn't think that you were fully capable of doing the work. And no one's saying it's going to be easy. It is going to be harder than it was during your undergraduate years, but you can do it. And if you're struggling in, reach out to people. You do not have to do this alone. And so the same is true with graduate school and just your career in general. Don't try to go it alone. Look for people to help you. And then balance, we talked about this, and so we'll just kind of skip on to the next thing. Okay, so now that you know how to avoid burnout and all the weird things about graduate school that we've talked about, let's move on and look at the career planning. And so you might be thinking, I came to graduate school so I didn't have to think about my career for a few years. And so we're here to dissuade you of that notion, because that's not really the right way to go about that. So as we mentioned before, your degree really isn't enough. You need to know beyond that what you have to do. And while you're at CGU, you will learn, you will develop new skills and learn different things. But what you really need to think about is, what do I need to know how to do for the particular career that I want to have? So if at this point, if you don't really know what that career is, then you need to come and meet with us to start plotting that out and thinking about where you might want to go. And even if you don't know, you don't need to know the exact name of it now, but I find also if you can describe in a general sense, I want a career that allows me to do these things, and just talking through that will sometimes help brainstorm for what those careers might look like. But start thinking about those things. And a lot of you are doing class projects, and you really, if you know what you want to do, you can tweak your class projects so they're connected to helping you build the kind of skills that you want as you go through time. And then also, given what your career experience was before coming here, and then your degree is going to have an impact on your search. So for example, if you came directly from an undergraduate program and you don't have career level experience yet, when you come out of this program with a master's degree, you might struggle a little bit as employers are looking at you saying, but you don't have any career experience in this particular field, yet you have an advanced degree. They start to think you're going to want a lot of money and have expectations that might not meet where they think you are given the experience that you have. Or in Lee's case, why don't you talk about your transition?
My transition was a little different because on a lot of the applications I had made, people thought I was overqualified for the positions I was looking at, and it was difficult for me to express to employers that I was looking to change positions, and I was willing to move to a lower level before I moved back up the corporate ladder again. So I think in the career planning for me, making those strategic relationships and getting some of the work experience in a completely different field was very important to my progression in my new chosen career. And one of the other things that's on this chart is knowing what your values are. Besides just monetary values, what your personal values are and what drives you, what gets you going to work or school every morning. Know what those values are so you can pursue the right things when you're looking at a career after you get out of school.
Yeah, and then your situation, some of you might be in that situation of changing industry and or job function. So the hardest career transition to make is changing industry and changing job function. And that's one of the things that Lee is trying to do. I did that myself. I used to be faculty. The first time I tried to get out of faculty role, I was changing industry. I was looking at things that are more corporate, and I was also looking at a completely different functional area of training and development. And that was really hard, and I got a lot of doors slammed in my face. And so the second time I thought, well, let me just stay in the same industry, higher ed, and look for jobs in there. And it was still hard. I'm not going to say it was completely easy, but people still wonder about your background. But you haven't done this exact thing before. So one of the things you learn in graduate school is how to make an argument. So you have to learn how to argue that, yes, I can do this, and convince people in a good way to see you in a different light than they might want to based on what you look like on paper. And that's challenging. So even Lee mentioning about the building relationships with people, for people anybody in your career, having a network is really important, but especially if you're trying to make a career change, you need to have champions who can help argue that, yes, Lee looks different than the other candidates we've had in this position, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't interview him and talk to him and get to know him. But, again, these other things, thinking, what do you want? What job titles sound interesting to you? What's the geographic location that you want to live in? That actually has an influence on what career choices you can make. I've met with people who've wanted to live in a very specific place and wanted a career that just didn't match. There wasn't an option to do that in the geographic location that they wanted to be. So you need to think about those things. Even, salary. Your first salary out might not be huge if you don't have a lot of work experience. Or again, if you're making a career transition, you might have to build back up to something. So having realistic expectations, and again, knowing your industry and organizations you want to go to, and being adaptable. That's the number one skill set now that employers look for, is people who be adaptable. So change. And over the course of your career, you'll probably change a number of times. Hopefully you'll progress up through the food chain, but you at some point in your career, if you haven't made a transition already, might decide to change industries or might try to change job functions. So thinking about all of those types of different things to think about. So these are the aspects that we can help you with in terms of your global career planning, of knowing all these different pieces that play into.
The two things on this chart that are going to predict your success in your career afterwards. The highest correlations are being proactive, which is showing initiative and going on to do things. So PhD students that finish in 5 years or 6 years are really going to have a much higher chance of success, and the adaptability. People want to know that you're willing to accept change and some of the ambiguity that we have to deal with as grad students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Okay, let's look on to another important feature in your whole graduate program and for your career is building strategic relationships. And so one of the things that you need to think about is building your advising and mentoring team. So all of you got assigned an advisor when you came here. If you're in a master's program, that person might be fine to go through. Unless you're writing a thesis, then you might want to think about career, or interest, research areas of interest. In a PhD program, you are, again, assigned an advisor, but when you move into the post-coursework phase, writing your dissertation, you might want to change advisors at that time. We're currently working on a video to explain some of those changes, but that's something that you want to think about. Within your department, your program coordinator knows the faculty, knows a lot about what's going on. So those oftentimes are good people to talk to if you have questions, especially if you're trying to figure out personalities of faculty. The program coordinator probably knows pretty well. Peers. So you come in as a cohort, get to know the people in your cohort, make friends with them, ask them for their advice and opinions, things. I mean, all of you are going to hear different things, so it's nice to error correct amongst one another and kind of see what else you've heard. And even advanced students, people like Ivy, or even though Lee's not here anymore, he could count as an advanced student. I mean, he's not here as a graduate student, so he's done. But people that have been at it longer than you, because hindsight's always 20/20. You can look back and think, wow, I wish I'd known that earlier than I did. And so people that have been at it longer will know more than you. And other faculty. And the nice thing about us being part of the consortium is it's not just faculty at CGU, but faculty at the other colleges in the consortium. And in fact, we even have students who work with faculty at different universities because they have the particular area of expertise that they need for their work. So you do not just have to rely on the faculty here. I don't know if they'll let you have an advisor that's not CGU specific, and I'm not quite sure that's a great idea. But you can certainly have people on your committee. And then if you look around the big circle, you can see other campus resources. So the Center for Writing and Rhetoric. If your advisor or any of the faculty people tell you to go to the Writing Center, they are not trying to personally insult you and suggest that your writing skills are awful. Academic writing is actually very weird. It's a very different kind of writing. And in fact, if you decide not to be an academic, the years that you're here learning how to write like an academic, you'll have to unlearn when you get out because nobody likes to read that. But faculty will say that all the time. It's a hard process, and they're not suggesting that you don't know English well enough to write papers. It's just that there's a very specific format that they're looking for. And when you go to the Center for Writing and Rhetoric, they can help you formulate ideas, especially if you haven't done research studies per se before. It's a very different process, so don't be insulted. Most of the faculty tell that to everybody, but they don't often make a big announcement in class. So again, that's another thing you might be thinking, I'm the only one being told this, but it's probably not true. Student life diversity and leadership, that's where you can go to make some of the important connections. And so they host all the clubs and organizations. The GSC works really closely with student life diversity and leadership. They put on a lot of events and workshops and the like. So definitely go over there. They have a nice little house too that we used to be in, so you can go over there and hang out.
I just wanted to add, I feel like they're also a really great resource for international students and things.
Yes,
so,
that's true.
They're very knowledgeable about different kinds of international related, I guess, policies and things like that. Mm-hmm. So,
right, yeah, if you're an international student, you probably already met with them, or you should have.
True.
If you haven't, that would be bad. So you probably know. And Montsler Counseling, which you've already mentioned. And then the Preparing Future Faculty program. So even if you don't intend to be a faculty person, Shamini Diaz, who runs that program, sees what she does as kind of training future leaders in different professions, because if you're going to be a manager at some point in time in your life, you will be teaching people, mentoring people, so same kind of thing. So there's a series of required workshops. You can get a certificate if you want, but there are things that you can pick and choose. And so if there are topics that don't seem related to what you want to do, you don't have to take those. But that would be a way to kind of build up and connect. And it's a way to help you meet people from outside of your field, because I think that's something that's important to think about it too, is that sometimes graduate school makes you very siloed, and so you hang out only with people in your particular program, and that's not necessarily good. So get out and meet people, and preparing future faculty is one of those programs that can help you do that.
I know there's one other program that was available to DBOS students, but there's probably similar clubs in the other programs here at CGU, is the peer mentoring program, which checks a couple of these boxes for advanced students and peers, and they partner you up with an advanced student that's been through what you're going through right now. So try and look into those resources, and you can check on student life, diversity, and leadership, and they'll be able to let you know what other clubs are available to you like that.
Right. Well, and SLD also runs the Minority Mentor Program. So if you're from an underrepresented group, I would go over and talk to them, and they can hook you up with a mentor. Also can help you navigate the system. So that's really good. Okay, other things you need to do: join your academic community. This is all good for you. And so depending on who you have as your faculty advisor and other faculty you talk to, they might give you different advice on this. But these are things that I think is good to do. And I think other people agree with me too. And if you don't, that's okay. So first would be, I think it's important to attend conferences. And this is true for people who want to be academics and for people who don't. I have worked with students who have met their future employer at a conference. We tend to think a lot of times that the only people that go to conferences are other academics, and that's not always the case, that especially in the field of psychology, or if you're in community and global health. I mean, people come to those conferences from all different areas and industries, and so it's not just academics. But like, even if it is one that's only academic, when you go to the Modern Language Association, which is the big mothership conference for people in languages and English, they have a vendors area. That's where all the publishers hang out and other places that work within arenas that are related to the field in general. So if, for example, one of your options thinking, well, I'd like to be a faculty member, but if not, publishing would be okay. That's where you meet all the people that are in that realm. So really think about that. You don't necessarily have to be presenting a paper. If you do, there's usually a graduate division, so the competition is just other graduate students, so it's a little less stiff than competing with faculty who've been on it for a while. And the GSC does have travel grants that they'll award to students who get papers in, so keep a lookout for that.
It's a really good place to build your strategic relationships too. I know that I only attended a couple conferences while I was going to school, but when I came back, I was able to use those connections in other projects and use them for connections to companies later on. So it's really important whether you're going into a PhD program or academics or not.
Right. Cool. So publishing. This is something that you might want to do, especially if you want to be an academic. And I've met some students who in master's programs have published. So if you're in a master's degree program and you want to go into a PhD program, getting a publication, if you can do that, would really be helpful. If you are in a PhD program and you want to be an academic, you need to have publications for almost all academic jobs. For community colleges, it's not necessary to have publications, but a lot of people at community colleges actually do have a good publishing record. But if you want anything above a community college, that's the price of entry, is to have publications. And it's getting stiffer. It was much easier back in the day when I applied for my first academic jobs. The packet was smaller and the expectations of what you did before you got there were less, but that kind of creeps up. So think about publishing paper. So every paper you write for class, you should be thinking to yourself, could I submit this for a conference? And then after you do your conference work, then the next question is, can I get a publication out of this? Build your strategic relationships and network with people. So again, while you're here, Lee's been really good at that, of making connections and networking, but I don't think we can understress that enough, that you really do need to try to meet people in the field that you want to enter. The sooner you do that, the better. It's harder to start networking for good, strong career connections less than 6 months away from needing a job, because you don't know the people well enough at that point that they would recommend you for anything or you could count on them. So if you're just starting, you need to start thinking about your networks now. And I think the same is true. Academics don't do it as much, but when so many people apply for a faculty job, I kind of think that when you're looking through the list of all the people who've applied for your position, when you come across a name you've seen before, you're going to stop and pay more attention to that. Or someone's going to call you and say, hey, I just applied for that job in your department, and they know you and they'll be excited for you. So really work on that. If you're anxious and nervous and not quite sure how to make those connections, please come in and talk to us. We can help you figure out who you need to know. Because even when you think about networking, I mean, a lot of people sometimes think I go into a room with a bunch of strangers and I talk to people I don't know. And that's actually not the way you network, or at least not effectively, because you need to think, okay, what people do I know? What industry do they need to be in? And what role do they need to have so that they can be useful to you? Because just meeting people willy-nilly randomly, that's not going to help if they're not related to the field that you want to enter or the particular type of position you want. So you need to be strategic and think about, who am I meeting and why for that. And I think the last thing I want to talk about is learning how to brag about yourself. So we did a video this summer that's on our YouTube channel. It's how to make an elevator pitch. You all need to think about how to make an elevator pitch. And that might take you a couple of iterations to get it right, but you want to be prepared to have something in case you do meet someone in an elevator that you want to sell your skills to. But I think that in graduate school, again, we all talked about the fact that you get beaten down over time. So sometimes you lose your self-confidence when coming into graduate school and going through the process. But you need to learn how to brag about yourself. And I find that what I found, and this was my own experience too, when I was done and trying to make a career transition, I kept thinking, I don't know how to do anything. I don't have any skills, because I was so in that academic mindset, and also kind of the years of being told I wasn't good enough at something by faculty to motivate me to do better. So sometimes it's hard to learn how to effectively brag about yourself. But the book that I stuck up there, that's an excellent book. I bought that a few years back, and I've recommended it to a number of students. And this person gives some really excellent examples of people that she's met who tried to brag to her really ineffectively, and then how she worked with them to polish their brag so that it sounded really good. So again, you don't want to come off as an egomaniac that I'm the best at everything, but you don't want to come off sounding like you're less than 100% confident in your skills and abilities to do things. And if you don't learn how to do it now, it's not going to be good when you're in interviews, because an interview is basically an hour plus of you talking about your accomplishments and your strengths, and you need to be able to do that really effectively. So get that book, Learn How to Brag. All right. So other things that you need to do to be successful in graduate school, read your department student handbook. You can find it in, most of them are in the CGU portal. If you cannot find it in the portal, I know in some departments they put it in Canvas, but you need to get your student handbook. You need to read that thing. You need to download it and keep it somewhere. That is the contract that you have with the university of what you need to do to get out of here in a timely manner. They're very serious about it. There are deadlines of things that you need to do, certain things you have to accomplish, especially the intent to file a degree. There's a date that is due. If you miss that, you are not going to get the degree in the semester that you think you are. So print that out, have that. The longer you're here, like if you're in a PhD program and things change, they will. You only have to meet the requirements of the handbook under which you came into CGU. So that's why you want to have that and make sure that you know everything. If you have any questions at all, ask your advisor, ask the program coordinator, but get clarity on that and make sure that you're looking at that.
And I just wanted to add that everybody, also the university, assumes that you're reading your handbook and that you know what's in there and all of that. So there's very little sympathy for you happen to have missed that part, or you didn't, you missed the deadline because you weren't aware of this, because the assumption is, well, you should be aware. We've given you the handbook. So definitely read the handbook.
Yeah, and that's actually a good thing on the ambiguity thing, because faculty don't tell you those things, the deadlines. Like, they expect that you're going to find that out on your own.
Right.
So if you're waiting for your advisor to tell you that you have to turn something in on time, don't do that. They're not going to pay attention to that. And they've got so many different advisees. They're not really focused on what your individual needs are. So it's important for you to know that for yourself.
Yeah, it's been my experience that I've had to tell my advisor, like, oh, I have to submit this by this date. And of course, he's been great in helping me get everything on my ducks in a row on time. But it's me telling him, not him reminding me. It's never,
right.
Yeah, that's how it's always been.
And give yourself plenty of time. Faculty sometimes are slow at getting back to you. So if you need something signed like September 21st, I'd start asking the beginning of September and tell them the deadline's 2 weeks before you really need it, so that you've got some lag time to go back to them and say, no, seriously, I really need it now.
Definitely.
Which could happen. Faculty get distracted easily. You all got an ask binder or a book during your new student orientation. If you did not, then go to your department and ask your program coordinator for one. But the Ask Binder is something we put together a couple of years ago that kind of encompasses all the different things that you need to know about grad school in general and all the different resources available to you, and has some activities in it to help you. So Section 5 is all about career development, has some things in there for you. But there are different resources and different things that you need to be aware of. They're kind of all in one nice little place. And so some of the things that they'll tell you in there is read your student handbook, but look at your Ask Binder and bring that to advising appointments with you. It can help you stay on track. And there's actually a section in there on advising guidelines of what your rights and responsibilities are as an advisee and what the roles and obligations and responsibilities are of your advisor. Well, I guess this one doesn't work. We were doing this in the summer. I should take this out. It was get a head start on your reading, but it's a little bit too late for that. So hopefully, don't get behind in your reading would be the one right now. And again, just another plug for the Center for Writing and Rhetoric. Again, graduate school writing is very different. So try not to be offended if someone tells you to go to the writing center. It's just kind of a thing. It took me a while to learn how to write like an academic, and then also it took me a while to unlearn how to write like an academic. So it's just part of the process. It's weird, and just that's all you need to know about that. All right, so ways that you can engage with us at the CDO, another plug for us, schedule an appointment on Handshake. If you haven't used Handshake much, we have a couple of tutorials on YouTube that show how to fill out your profile, how to search for jobs, how to search for employers, and some of the different things that you can do with that and how to look at events. But there's also one on scheduling appointments. So if you have not scheduled an appointment through Handshake yet, that's how we schedule all of our appointments so that we don't accidentally double book ourselves. So please go to Handshake and do that. You can watch our YouTube videos. Again, there's a bunch of them on a lot of different things. And so all the webinars we did for the summer are on YouTube, our career bites and other interesting things. There's a really cute commercial for our space too, which now we have to change it. We're in a new space.
No, that's right.
Begin your career roadmaps. Again, that's in the resources section of Handshake, and it's also on the portal page. And in fact, there's a new thing I put in our on our portal page. That's a really easy one-page interactive activity that you can do. They'll show you all the career development things that you need to do. So if you can't find that, it's just on the page that says Explore on that front page in the top bar there that says interactive activity. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll send you the link for it, but it's really handy to have. And then develop your purple squirrelness. I mean, you're in graduate school. You're going to be weird. If you're in a master's program, you're going to join about 10% of the population as a master's. Currently, the U.S. population is about just over 1% of people with a PhD. So if you're in a PhD program, you're going to have a freak anyway, so let your freak find fly.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So that's all we wanted to present today. So if you have any questions, we still have some time left. You can type them into the chat box. Anybody have any questions? While we're waiting, just wanted to say thank you. You're very welcome. We hope to see you in the office soon. Oh, I forgot to mention, we have coffee and cookies too. So if you are stressed out, come get some coffee and Oreos. I know they're really bad for you, but
Right.
sometimes a sugar rush is necessary. And we have crackers and nuts too.
Yeah, and
So,
coffee and tea.
coffee
so
and
it's all-
tea. Yeah, tea's great for mellowing out.
Yeah.
In case you're exhausted because you're burnt out.
There you go. And we have a couch too, so you can come in and sit on our couch and take a rest. Well, anything else you two want to add before we close out? It doesn't look like there's any more questions.
No.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you soon and hear what we can do to help you to be successful in graduate school and beyond. So please stop by the Career Development Office. We're located in the Burkle Building in Office Suite 130. We're hoping to have a sign for that very soon. And thanks for attending the webinar.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.